All right, we're back again. Took a week off.
It was kind of refreshing, but I do miss it. So I miss you, Tristan, and doing these videos with you and having our lovely viewers tuning in.
I miss you too, bud. And also, welcome to any viewers that we have that are joining us live, and to anyone who might be watching the replay, watching this on demand. I think is the right term. My brain is scrambled. I just tested negative for COVID after a week long bout that laid me out.
No joke stuff.
Yeah, I'm still fully in need to take a nap every hour and a half mode. My brain is shot, so I might be a little bit loopy.
That's okay. I'm glad you're feeling better and getting back to it. So it always could be much worse.
It could always be much worse. I was lucky enough to have like a pretty, in the grand scheme of things, pretty mild bout. I tested positive last Thursday, and just like by the end of the day, I was just like, oh, why does it feel like I've been doing deadlifts for a week straight? And then went and got a hotel room.
Let's see him. Have you?
Oh, absolutely not. No. I did lose like 10 pounds, but I'm glad to be back. Excited to be back here and talking to you about some stuff. So how's your week, man? You just got back from RSA, did you not? You were there, right?
I personally did not, sadly. Actually, I've never been to RSA. But for those tuning in, hopefully you had a chance to meet some of the folks out at RSA. I heard word on the street is there's just a lot of new cyber companies out there. I mean, there's always a lot of new cyber companies every year.
Yeah.
But particularly, it seems like this isn't just a hot space. This is the space to be in, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah. I have to catch up with the people from our team that went and see if they saw anything interesting, if anything interesting came out of that. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit next week. But cool. We may as well kind of mention it right at the top here. We've actually got some more upcoming events. You had a list that you were going through earlier of more things we're going to be at.
So hopefully this week, anybody tuning in got a chance to visit some of the GuidePoint team out at RSA and also at Gartner this week up in the DC area. And next week, we'll be on the ground out at the Splunk conference. My words there. But the .com Splunk conference. But yeah, and so again, if you run into any of the GuidePoint folks, please be sure to say hey.
Yeah, stop by, say hey to anyone if you're going to be in the area. We'd love to chat with you. You can tell them that Jonathan and Tristan sent you so that we can prove that this is not a futile effort. But before we get going with anything, we always, of course, need to appease the legal gods to let you know that views and opinions expressed by hosts, that would be Jonathan and myself, are our own and do not necessarily reflect official opinions of GuidePoint Security. So, before we dive into the stories and talk about the things that we've got lined up for you this week, just need to get it out there that if we say something stupid, it's not GuidePoint's fault. It's our own.
Yeah. So you want to kick it off for us here?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, bear with me. I might be running a little bit slow today, but our first story is actually, I think, pretty cool. We've been talking a lot about over the past few weeks, we've been talking a lot about the shifting cybersecurity landscape when it comes to federal responses, sanctions that are being laid out, actions that are being taken. And so this is kind of a cool story that just slides right into that long lineage that we've got there, that the U.S. government in a joint effort took down SSNDOB, a marketplace for selling, if you're paying attention to the acronyms, social security numbers and dates of birth, PII for people. So they managed to seize the servers. I believe it was a joint action with Cyprus, the Cyprus police.
Indeed.
They took down 4 different domains that were part of the operation that were responsible for selling 24 million people's personal information. And so, I think it's great to see this kind of stuff. You love seeing this kind of win, but one thing that I was surprised by in this story, like you hear a lot about the decreasing value of things like passwords and personally identifiable information, right? Like back years ago, like paying for someone's social security number, paying for someone's date of birth, like the information that you would need to steal their identity, that was a high dollar, that was a high value item. And now it's just not anymore. Like they were saying in the story that this site was being used to sell PII for U.S. citizens for as little as 50 cents a pop.
I'm a little bit I must say hurt by that, to hear that it's only worth 50 cents.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, my credit score, sure, maybe 45.
Yeah,
I'll give you a nickel off.
And so we've seen a little bit of this stuff definitely happening, right? It's not new for different government agencies, especially here in the United States, to get involved in doing a domain takedown or a domain seized, right? And they put up a very interesting graphically filled banner. But something to keep in mind, right, is we're watching a lot of these things changing over the years. I was recently had an opportunity to meet with some members of some different government organizations. And, we talked about what was the past 10 and 15 years like. And there was Carter forums, right, where credit cards were the thing for sale. And then that kind of slowly moved into PII. And then there's also, marketplaces around healthcare information. And so we're constantly seeing these kinds of dark markets, popping up, especially with places like Tor, and being forms of selling this. And it's not just the United States involved in this. This does affect a lot of different companies. In fact, British citizens of the United Kingdom are also part of some of these sales efforts. And so I think it's great that we're continuing to have agencies going after this kinds of stuff. Nobody likes having their identity stolen. I think we're pretty numb to the credit card, idea these days. So many safeguards in place that if your credit card does get stolen, they're just going to tell you, hey, we're sending you a new one. Good luck, right? And that's kind of the end of it. They don't even tell you how or where it happened. You kind of sleuth that yourself a little bit. But yeah, no, another good shutdown, and hopefully, they continue to go after, the people and the perpetrators in this space.
And, also of note here is that kind of the analysis that was done on this is that a majority of the information on this site did come from breaches of hospitals and healthcare. They really focused on whoever was behind this, the folks behind this really focused on getting their information through those kinds of things. And there's a few reasons for that, right? That's going to be highly accurate information. It's going to be up to date. If you're breaching a hospital, like, you're going to be getting patient records and patient information that is extremely current. So that's going to be a little bit more valuable, right? You're not potentially using old addresses, old contact info, the potential that their identity has been stolen between the time that information was entered and now, and that they've taken measures to protect it, right? Like, they're getting their information from that kind of breach, and it highlights the importance, I think, of the shift that we've been seeing in general towards taking a much more active stance on security for organizations like that. But also another really interesting thing about it is that because they took their payments in cryptocurrency, because why wouldn't they? Right? Find me a good criminal who doesn't these days.
Say the currency of criminals. Yeah, there you go.
So, they took their payments in cryptocurrency. And so there was an organization, Chain Analysis, was tracing back across all of that and looking at the wallets. And they actually think that this might also be connected to, you mentioned, Carter sites. They think that potentially this operation was also connected to Joker Stash, which was shut down in January of last year. But that was a site that also focused on not only PII, but also stolen credit card information. And that's kind of, I think, it's interesting to look at that, because we've talked over the last couple of weeks about organizations like ransomware gangs and stuff changing the way that they're working. A couple weeks ago, when we had Drew on, we talked a lot about ransomware groups splitting up and changing the way they operate. And everyone in this kind of criminal enterprise, this is how they're operating. This is what they're doing now, is they just kind of shift from one thing to the next. As soon as something gets a little hot, it's so easy for them to change tactics and change over to a new operation, a new site, look like something completely different. But there are always those small threads that carry through, but that I think brings us to the next story really well.
It does. It's a fantastic segue to roll us in here.
And if you know Jonathan and I, you know we'll never pass up the opportunity to call ourselves out on a good segue.
So. Always got to do that. All right. Well, let's I'll take that opportunity and slide on into your DMs with Evil Corp, right? Definitely a group that we've heard of out there. They've moved their operations to a ransomware as a service kind of model to simply handle a shift to avoid sanctions, right? And so, we've, like you've mentioned, we've covered a lot of government related activity lately with regards to targeting ransomware, targeting malware, and good suggestions for different industries, verticals, satellites, to protect themselves. Right. But one of them is now focusing on sanctions against specific groups, right, to not allow the payments. And these groups are aware of that. They understand that they may not get the reward that they're necessarily looking for. And this is one of those shifts, right? And they're shifting to ransomware as a service to essentially put all the bad deeds under somebody else's, action, activity, and name.
It's important to clarify here, because when I first saw the headline of this, I read it as, Evil Corp, they developed the DryDex ransomware and used that, and that's what initially got sanctions leveled against them in 2019. Was their development and use of DryDex. So when I read this headline, I thought, oh, Evil Corp is shifting to offering ransomware as a service. But the important, I think, distinction here is that they're shifting to using ransomware as a service to cover their own tracks, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. And most notably, they were looking at stuff like Lockbit, right? And which has also made its way through the news recently. And it's not to say that we're not catching up with some of these teams, right? The U.S. government was able to charge several Evil Corp members, and there are additional, multi-million-dollar rewards on the table, according to the article. Which, by the way, our previous article with regards to the black market was Bleeping Computer, and this one for the Evil Corp shift is coming from the Register. But yeah, it's the .com, and but how are there is absolutely a level of awareness in these groups, and like you said, sometimes it's a change of clothes, sometimes it's go dark for a while and pop back up, because it's going to be difficult to go after the individuals themselves, but we continue to be able to target and shut down their infrastructure, at least, and some of their operational aspects.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing about this shift towards using other people's ransomware, because one of the things that they call out in this article on the Register is they talk about different research groups that have been following this and been tracking it, and there's quite honestly too many to to name in this article. They cite a lot of different sources, but one of the things that they talk about in there is different instances of ransomware attacks that have claimed to be from groups like Revil and others, or REvil and others, but are now looking like they could be attributed back to Evil Corp just because they used a ransomware as a service, they changed the name in the file, and then they sent it out. And they're doing that to, I reached out to Grit, the Guide Point Research and Intelligence team, with this article this morning, and I was like, hey, do you guys have any thoughts on this? And they came back with, it's, this is pretty standard looking stuff. They want to do whatever they can to get their bag and to make their money. And so if the government is saying, hey, it is now a crime to interface with this group in any way, and we are sanctioning you, well, of course, the first thing that they're going to do is try and make it look like they're not the one attacking you so that you still pay up. They want to make sure that there is as little friction as possible in between them and getting the money. And so by switching to using off-the-shelf ransomware and by pretending to be other groups, they're simply trying to, I mean, honestly, like it's bad enough that they have encrypted someone's entire, data set and are demanding this money. Now they're going a step further and basically entrapping you. Like you're going to be in a lot of trouble for paying out. And they're just, they're doing whatever they can. And I don't know.
And so
I don't know where that's going.
I must say, I'll be honest with this also, is that it's entirely a coincidence, but it just so happens that my buddy James was quoted in the article that we're using as reference. I didn't pick it out because of this. It's just completely a coincidence. But he brings up a really good point. That these cybercrime gangs essentially run like a business. I mean, similar in the sense that you and I have our regular jobs and we have things to do and tasks and got to get on the phone and have corporate issued laptops. It is I want our viewers to picture this and realize that these aren't, this isn't the cybercrime gangs of yesteryear, hiding in the basement with their hoodies on. These are well-oiled machines that have infrastructure, have resources, and even oftentimes have state, backings. And so, when we're seeing evidence of leaked things from like the Conti group, and we can see how they operate and how they do things in almost a strange business manner, that kind of puts, a lot of this in perspective. And just like some companies may pivot in their market to potentially, optimize and find better avenues, these ransomware gangs are going to likely do the same. And so it's definitely going to be a challenge trying to keep up with it.
And just as a small plug, just this week, a couple days ago, we published the first Grit ransomware report. So the Guidepoint Research and Intelligence team is going to be doing regular reports on ransomware activities that they're tracking. So there will be a blog for the smaller kind of more rapid reports we'll be releasing as a blog, and then we'll be collecting those things on a kind of quarterly and annual basis. But the Grit ransomware report for May is out, and it's interesting to kind of look at this story and see Evil Corp using off the shelf like Lockbit, because in the report one of the things that they break down is what groups are posting the most victims, which groups are shaming the most victims and putting them out there, and what types of industries are they targeting. And Lockbit is far and away the most active or one of the most active ones that they are tracing. I'm just looking at the report right now to grab some of the accurate numbers. Lockbit was the most impactful ransomware group in May with 73 publicly posted victims.
That's a lot. And
that's a lot.
And for our viewers out there online, Tristan, how can they get a hold of this lovely report, and where can they find more information on it in our blog?
If they would like to find this lovely report, they can go to guidepointsecurity.com/blog, and it will be the top one for right now if you're watching this live. But if you're not watching it live and you're catching the video on demand, you can go ahead and search the blog for Grit Ransomware Report May, and you will find it there. And then we will be like I said, we'll be collecting those on kind of a quarterly and annual basis, and delivering more of a full report with a little bit deeper analysis out of that. Awesome. And so we'll be putting those out as they come. We'll make sure to draw attention to it here.
I like it. And by the way, drawing attention has been a really big thing. I don't know if you had the opportunity to peek into some of the Apple announcements this week regarding some of the.
That was a rough one. That was a rough one. There was a speed bump.
Yeah, nothing necessarily has to go perfect, right? But there was quite a few things, and within the past couple of weeks, we have talked about different manufacturers taking a step in the security direction, right? We heard about the FIDO Alliance really starting to come up with more easier adoption methods for multi-factor authentication. And so hopefully this can help us kind of segue roll into our last story of the day, which happens to be Apple rolling out real-time security updates for their phones and computers. Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk it? Yeah. Now, it's important, we don't want to, we have over the last couple of weeks talked a lot about, like the FIDO Alliance, which involves Apple and a couple others, and these kind of things we've been talking about. But like, it's important to note that we're not, when we bring these stories up, trying to highlight the manufacturer themselves. We're not trying to highlight Google themselves and the changes they're making to Android, or Apple themselves and the changes they're making to iOS. These are
jumping critical of them.
Right. These are jumping off points to talk about, kind of the shifts that we need to see in security overall. And this is a really positive shift. At WWDC, they announced, they I don't think they spent too much time talking about it, but they announced that they're going to be, like you said, rolling out real-time security updates to Mac and iOS. And it's currently available in the developer beta, which means it'll probably be coming in the next version of iOS and iOS 16. But it's pretty cool. It looks like they are introducing into the operating system the ability to kind of do like spot updates for critical security vulnerabilities without the need to potentially, according to what they're saying, without the need to reset or reboot the device. It'll just happen in the background.
Yeah.
You'll get a security update, and no longer will you have to wait for like a monthly update to come out with all of the patches.
That, or the updates lately, not to poke fun, but I mean it's 30-45 minutes, some of these processes that your system is down and offline. And so yeah, to kind of springboard off of that idea, I heard many years ago that Macs don't get viruses, so I'm not really sure what the purpose of this is.
Yeah, I think John Hodgman told me that. Yeah.
But in all reality, this is a really good approach to see this. And the article coming from TechCrunch does talk about Apple not being the only ones in the kind of the mobile and laptop world taking this approach. Google is also adopting a similar approach with their Play System updates, right? Not necessarily the full thing, but there are components of it that they're focusing on. And we've already seen this kind of stuff. I feel like I'm seeing more and more Windows updates that don't necessarily need a full system reboot, but they're able to do these hot fixes, hot patches, and be able to kind of allow us to continue with mission critical systems and operations without batting an eye. So it's definitely super cool. I cannot wait to see, just in general, right? I love seeing security adoption taking precedence, right? We're always going to be a world of function first, and that ease of use, but finding ways to creatively make cybersecurity part of your day-to-day use in your tools and your experiences it's just wonderful. Makes me feel good inside, just like how I feel about doing these weekly videos with you.
Yeah, I enjoy this as well, Jonathan. Yeah. This is the highlight, I think, of my work week. But it's exciting to me too to see this stuff be adopted and made frictionless. I think back to the early days of like smart devices and smartphones and people carrying around the Motorola Droid, which was my original smartphone. That's the first one I ever had, or the early iPhones, and what a pain it was to like get an update at all. Like, and how that had to go through your carrier and the system and the manufacturer and all of these things before you could finally get like a critical security update to the phone. And over time, it's become so much more frictionless. And that has then, like you were saying, transferred over to desktop operating systems like Windows and others. As these companies have started to recognize how important it is to separate critical elements of the system so that they can be handled individually, as opposed to like, well, it's just the system. And I'm excited to see where it goes, to see how much further we can take this, until we hopefully get to the point someday where I have a passwordless experience that is updated on its own without me knowing about it. Like issues are just handled. Because the faster we can get to that, the more on par we will be with where attackers are, which is that
exactly
they can find an exploit or a vulnerability and turn it around into an exploit instantly. So we should also have the ability to recognize a vulnerability or an exploit and patch it instantly.
Well, hey, I like my job security. Thank you. Right, cat and mouse is still very lucrative. Not to say that it's the way it should be, but.
Well, as someone who's in marketing, I just get to talk about this stuff. I'll always be able to get paid to talk about it.
Yeah. And besides, every week, just Tristan and I talk about this stuff. We love to hear from you, the listeners and viewers, whether you're watching live or you're watching this in an on-demand format. If you think there's something cool going on, please feel free to reach out to us. This is a platform where we want to talk about these things and we want to engage in discussion. and not just be a couple of bobbing heads. I did want to promote. I decided to wear my jersey today. I have to throw this in there a little bit.
Just the jersey?
Yeah. The Tampa Bay Lightning, if you're watching this live, is currently winning 3-2.
I was referring to the hat, by the way.
Oh, this is the Tampa Bay Rays. Our local baseball team.
Well, it's sports.
So,
it's all sports.
I decided today was Sports Puck theme day. So hopefully we might do some more silly things of this nature in the future.
Yeah, I wore my favorite team's gear too, as you can see, the light blue.
You wear the programmers?
Yeah,
the programmers.
Yeah, the American Light Blues. That's my team of choice. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, like Jonathan said, and if you have things that you think would be interesting for us to talk about, you can drop them in comments and we'll see those. And we hope to see you guys again next week. Every week, Friday at 10:30 Pacific, 1:30 Eastern. We will be live here talking to folks about, well, really, I mean, just the stuff that we thought was cool for the week. It's not like we're covering like super important breaking news every week here, but we find the stuff that we liked, and we just enjoyed talking to each other and talking to you guys. So thank you so much for being here. For GuidePoint Security, I have been and will continue to be Tristan Morris.
And I just happen to be Jonathan Singer, and this was GPS Alive for the week of June 10th, 2022.
Thank you so much, folks. We will see you next week.